So a while ago I posted a video where I was doing the cuts from Meyer's Halberd section, particularly the cutting through the cross, which instead of cutting the diagonals where you're cutting straight down and back up on the same line, you're cutting down one side, down to the other side, and repeating this. Or you're cutting up and up. So the idea is you're making like a cross or an X in front of you, best I can figure. But it looks really bad in that video because if you go watch it, it looks basically like this. Can't even do this anymore. Okay, and that's wrong because what I was doing was cutting to like a low field guard, or I guess this just is low guard, and then swinging my shoulder to get this up really high so that I can come with a descending cut. And it's actually not the most efficient use of energy because I neglected one of the guards, which is right side guard, or recht Nebenhut. So left side guard, where you're starting, able to do a rising cut, starts with your hand that's on the middle of the halberd, positioned at your hip, your hand that's on the butt of the halberd forward, and then you're getting the most reach as opposed to having the staff like in thirds. If you cut high so that you end up on the right side, it should actually look like this, where you have almost a mirrored situation. Your hand in the middle of the staff is aligned with your hip. Your fist actually goes up. And if you have a really long halberd, it could go quite high up so that you don't hit the ground with the end of your staff. And this way you can bring it near you and not have to swing the weight so far away to generate force with your hips. And it takes some getting used to this action because it feels very weird to pump the arm up, pump it down to raise the weapon, and then pump it back up as you swing. So it feels like you're like pumping water almost. But once you get the hang of it, it does start feeling quite natural. And you get a good sense of the kind of core engagement you need for these actions. But it has a couple of other advantages. First of all, if you cut to this right Nebenhut, you can quickly jump out to Steerhut to defend yourself. And this is actually a pretty good defense. I recently found out with some controlled sparring against spears. It seems to block off your high lines and give you this nice wide paddle, almost to do like preem parries, your 1 and 2 parries from small sword or sport fencing. So you can cut here and then right away come out to some active defense. But the more interesting application of this I find is that in Meyer's staff section, he often talks about initiating a thrust by bringing your right hand down and forward. So if it's coming down, it must have been up. And what I think is going on here is that you're starting in this position after a swing. So, so if you're doing a swing to take off a thrust, or just to kind of clear some measure, you actually kind of corkscrew this like it's a karate punch almost, where it's sort of driving through your chest. So instead of cutting to like low and then having to like scoop to get a thrust, so it'd be like low thrust. Instead, you're coming from high, drilling forward, and you get that nice Meyer staff thrust where the stick is supported under your lead arm. Or you can pull it back so you get the most reach that you can get with both hands on it so that you can recover it relatively quickly. And the cool thing about this is that if you're just, getting all of your force with this rear arm, then you can just position your lead arm to decide where you want this to come up. So if I want to thrust to one side, just leave my hand there. If I want to thrust to the other side, I can just move my lead hand, you know, a little bit to the other side and come out the other side of my opponent's weapon. So that's my quick video on right Nebenhut. The main thing to remember is when you're cutting through the cross, make sure you cut to the right Nebenhut lower so that you keep it, you know, relatively near your torso, instead of it having to come down and swing way out to chamber your next descending cut. Okay, that's all I got.